rencana kota itu sebetulnya adalah proses alokasi dan realokasi sumber daya yang harus dilakukan sedemikian rupa sehingga manfaatnya dapat dirasakan secara adil dan merata bagi semua.
Salah satu tantangan terbesar dalam perancangan kota di negeri berkembang adalah kelestarian lingkungan dan juga sosial. Kita sering beranggapan dan mengasosiasikan pembangunan kota itu sebagai sebuah intervensi yang gagap gempita. Terkadang kita lupa bahwa kelestarian lingkungan dan juga sosial memiliki peranan penting terhadap keberlanjutan sebuah lingkungan binaan dan juga manusia dan juga sosial yang ada di dalamnya itu untuk di masa depan. Bahwa mimpi besar ke depannya untuk mendorong kota yang adil, membagi hak dan peluang yang sama untuk semua, serta menyediakan layanan bagi seluruh kelompok masyarakat tanpa mengesampingkan kebutuhan atau melantarkan kelompok masyarakat tertentu.
Sejak didirikan, Pusat Studi Urban Design menghimpun penggiat perancangan dan perencanaan kota dalam mengisi segala macam relung kesempatan untuk memberikan kontribusi langsung terhadap pembangunan peradaban bangsa, baik akademik maupun praktik. Merupakan harapan juga tugas besar kami untuk selalu mampu membantu memenuhi apa yang dibutuhkan kota-kota Indonesia guna menjadi kota-kota penguat bangsa yang memberikan dampak terbaik pada penghuninya.
Mobilitas merupakan salah satu isu utama kawasan metropolitan Jabodetabek. Transisi menuju moda transportasi publik yang terintegrasi menjadi langkah esensial dalam menciptakan jejaring transportasi yang efektif dan handal. Terletak di jantung kota Jakarta, Tanah Abang memiliki posisi yang strategis sebagai titik transit antar moda transportasi publik yang terintegrasi dengan fungsi bangunan dan fasilitas pendukung lainnya. Tanah Abang merupakan salah satu pusat perniagaan di jantung kota Jakarta. Walaupun syarat dengan berbagai isu infrastruktur dan sosial, namun proses peremajaan kawasan yang senantiasa berlangsung telah mewarnai persiapan Tanah Abang sebagai kawasan berorientasi transit. Dengan semangat untuk menciptakan sistem mobilitas yang kompak melalui integrasi antar moda, MITJ berkomitmen untuk berkolaborasi demi mewujudkan visi pengembangan KBT Tanah Abang sebagai denyut perniagaan dan transit Jakarta. Prinsip-prinsip pengembangan yang holistik dirancang untuk menuntun pengembangan fungsi-fungsi penunjang kawasan seperti simpul transit, hunian terjangkau, dan fasilitas lainnya dalam naungan panduan rancang kota Tanah Abang. Konsep pengembangan KBT Tanah Abang mengintegrasikan berbagai moda transportasi publik yang mengutamakan kemudahan dan kenyamanan pergerakan pejalan kaki di dalam kawasan pengembangan. Pengembangan fungsi-fungsi campuran seperti hunian, perkantoran, perniagaan, dan fasilitas umum dirancang untuk meningkatkan kualitas fisik dan sosial kawasan. Peningkatan kualitas lingkungan direalisasikan melalui pengadaan taman, plaza transit, area tepi sungai, dan ruang-ruang terbuka publik lainnya yang akan disuntikan di ruang antara fungsi-fungsi bangunan. Strategi implementasi konsep pengembangan KBT Tanah Abang dilakukan secara bertahap dengan memperhatikan kesiapan lahan dan proses kolaborasi dengan pemangku kepentingan terkait. Realisasi prinsip-prinsip pengembangan dilakukan melalui pengembangan proyek-proyek kunci seperti pengembangan transit hub di lahan KAI, revitalisasi stasiun Tanah Abang dan jembatan multiguna, revitalisasi area tepi sungai, pengembangan jaringan interkoneksi pejalan kaki melalui jembatan, jalur tembus, dan peningkatan kualitas jalur pejalan kaki. Integrasi antara moda transit dan fungsi pengembangan dilakukan melalui koneksi langsung, plaza transit, dan penyediaan fungsi-fungsi pendukung yang mudah diakses dari titik-titik transit. Pengembangan transit hub dirancang sebagai titik transit antar berbagai moda transportasi seperti kereta komuter, Transjakarta, dan moda transportasi berbasis daring. Revitalisasi area tepi sungai memberikan ruang aktif baru bagi pejalan kaki dan dapat meningkatkan kualitas iklim mikro di dalam kawasan pengembangan. Sejumlah jembatan penyeberangan orang diletakkan di beberapa titik di sisi sungai untuk meningkatkan aksesibilitas antar kuadran pengembangan di dalam kawasan Tanah Abang. Penyediaan jalur-jalur tembus di antara fungsi-fungsi bangunan dibuat untuk meningkatkan aksesibilitas pejalan kaki dan memberikan ruang-ruang positif baru dengan aplikasi konsep fasad aktif dan ruang-ruang komersial di sepanjang jalur.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here. My name is Dionysius Dino, and I will be your MC for today. And welcome to the emission, the first emission with the theme Planning Resilient and Sustainable Cities. Our topic today, we will talk about sustainable mobility for future Indonesian cities. And this is our first collaboration to help with Ramboll, PSUD, and Indonesian Architect Association of West Java Province. And today we will have three speakers. We will have Wang from Ramboll, Singapore, and we will have Mrs. Ray Krishnasamy from Ramboll, Singapore as well. And then we will have Mr. Seno Pranata from MITJ, and we will have also Mrs. Ade Tinamei as the moderator from PSUD. And I will read the rules for today for the event, for the participant. Anyway, thank you for the attendance for this afternoon. And the first rule, the participants shall use name hyphen with institution as their Zoom ID. And then the second, participants shall assign their audio setting into mute mode while the speakers give presentation. And the third, please use in the chat box if there is any question to the speaker in the Q&A session. And the fourth, questions will be discussed by the speakers and the moderator in the Q&A session. And the attendance link form will be distributed by the organizer in the chat box at the end of the session. And the e-certificate will be distributed to the participant after the event, at least 2 weeks after the emission, the first emission. So next, this event had been held among three parties. First is Ramboll, a global engineering, architecture, and consultancy company. Second is PSUD, Center for Urban Design Studies, an independent research-based community in the field of urban design, architecture, and planning. And we are also really happy that the Indonesian Architect Association of West Java chapter is fully supporting the event. And emission is a organized Ramboll and PSUD and focusing knowledge from speakers, experiences in planning for future cities, and to expand network within the city shapers communities. So now I will give the speech to the Mr. Adrianto Santoso from the Indonesian Architect Association of West Java Province representatives for the welcoming speech. Please, Mr. Adrianto.
Thank you, Dino. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good afternoon, greetings, ladies and gentlemen, greetings, guests and speakers, especially our colleagues from Ramboll, Singapore. On behalf of PSUD and the Indonesian Architects Association chapter of West Java, I would like to express our gratitude. It is an honor for us to be able to collaborate on a very fruitful event, especially in these times. And I will also deliver these greetings in Bahasa. Bapak Ibu, rekan sejawat yang saya hormati, saat ini kita menyadari bahwa perhatian terhadap keberlanjutan lingkungan, alam, bumi kita ini menjadi perhatian di dunia global. Pandemi, climate change, sudah membuktikan bahwa perlu sebuah kontribusi dari banyak aspek dan juga profesi dalam menjaga keseimbangan alam. Riset ADB, Asian Development Bank, menyebutkan bahwa 70% sampai 80% populasi udara dan 23% emisi gas rumah kaca di Indonesia ini dihasilkan dari transportasi. Ini membuktikan bahwa pergerakan manusia di Indonesia ini pada umumnya masih bertumpu pada kendaraan pribadi. Di mana pertumbuhan jumlah populasi manusia itu pun masih berbanding lurus dengan pertumbuhan jumlah kendaraannya. Mau sampai kapan? Sustainable mobility ini merupakan salah satu strategi dari sekian benang kusut yang harus kita urai bersama. Sustainable mobility will have an impact on the city development if it is elaborated with the broader aspects and multidisciplinaries. Bigger than that, sustainable mobility will become a new paradigm for the development of a city today, for the future, especially in Indonesia. We are fortunate to have emissions today, rethinking future urban mobility and making a positive contribution to our planet Earth as a topic. We hope that this event can be sustainable to provide a lot of enlightenment and insight for architects, planners, and urban designers, even policymakers in Indonesia. Sekian sambutan dari saya. Mohon dimaafkan jika ada kekurangan dan penyampaian. Salam sehat dan sukses selalu. Selamat sore. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Over to you, Dino.
Thank you, Mr. Adrianto, for the welcoming speech from the Indonesian Architect Association as well from the PSUD. And now I will give the introduction and the welcoming speech from the representative of Ramboll, Mrs. Ray Krishnasamy. So please, Mrs. Ray.
Hello, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ray Krishna, and I'm from the transport market of Ramboll, and very specifically in the Smart Mobility Spearhead. We focus on transport planning and very much into planning of livable spaces where mobility is a key part of accessing the livable spaces. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ray. Now I will continue to the event, and I will introduce you about our moderator. Her name is Mrs. Ade Tinamei from PSUD, Center for Urban Design Studies. She is an alumni of Institute of Technology Bandung, Architecture Department in 1989, and Masters of Urban Design at ITB in 1999. Joining PSUD until now, since 1997, designer and city planner, and she has completed the Ph.D. studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the United States with the focus on urban planning, public space legal planning, and urban design development. So now I will let Mrs. Ade to take the stage as the moderator of this event. So please, Mrs. Ade.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this public lecture or event, and we're welcoming two friends from Singapore. Hello. So the topic here is actually I can see that the topic here is actually sustainability saga. There are 3 different series that will be posted throughout the months, I guess. This is the first one. And then before I will introduce 3 speakers in this event, I would like to give a very brief introductory about what the title of the event will be. So first of all, let me open it. So this session will be focusing on the topic of sustainable mobility for the future Indonesian cities. So if we see the title here, we would have 2 important entry points as noted from the topic itself. The first is sustainable mobility itself, or sustainable transport, for example. And the second, for sure, is about Indonesian city as a context. So that those 2 would be pretty much we will talk about throughout the events. So if we want to the first define sustainable transport as you in the slides here, vision of service and infrastructure for mobility of both people and goods in the economy and development to benefit today's and future generation. 2 points here: today's and future generations, in a manner that it's first of all safe, affordable, accessible, efficient, and resilient, while at the same time minimizing carbon and other emissions and environmental impact. So moving on from that definition from UN, we may also see how the UN through the conference has stated that both transportation and the mobility itself are central to sustainable development. And then we can see that there's a strong relationship, strong correlation between mobility and how the urban area is planned to pursue or to reach the goal of sustainable development in the city. So, and further on, UN also highlights the importance that sustainable transportation will be in the future enhance the economic growth and improve accessibility. So based on those definitions from the UN, I may say that how can we rethink the future of our urban mobility in Indonesia? There are several things that we already post in our poster. For example, can we migrate from excessive use of private car towards public transportation? Or can we create a safe and comfortable environment for pedestrian lanes, bike lanes, or even electrical vehicles? And as well, the third one will be, can we design cities which foster shared mobility or even foster economic development? Those 3 questions, those 3 points are actually will be discussed by our 3 presenters today. So we're looking forward to hear their opinion about those points. So while in general, the issue of sustainability often merely relates with the case of reducing emission, but actually it goes beyond just about the green emission and things like that. It can go to the pursuit to improve lives and livelihood of the user or people in the city in general. So the railway itself might be the answer of the mobility, but that there are a lot of sectors in urban amenities and structures that needs to be planned ahead, advance in the consumption, not only mobility, but also sustainable mobility. So this is a very brief introductory from me that we will hear from our three speakers. So we would see that the relationship between mobility or infrastructure will relate pretty much with anything urban amenities, urban function in the city, such as land use, such as district development, such as intensity, and so on and so forth. So now we're welcoming three participants here, and I would like to introduce them one by one. It started from our friends, Bapak Seno Pranata from PT MITJ, PT Moda Integrasi Transportasi Jabodetabek. Selamat siang, sore Pak Seno, Mas Seno.
Hai, sore.
Iya, ini saya coba bacakan bionya ya.
Ya. Nggak usah panjang-panjang, cukup Mbak Ade.
Pak Seno, itu saja. Ya, Pak Seno, seperti as you can see in the slide that he has been involved in many private and public agency focusing on Jakarta Transportation Project as well as urban development project. So selamat siang. And then our second speakers, Mr. Wang or Mr. Wei, I don't know how to address you, Mr. Wang Wei from Ramboll, Singapore. Good afternoon, Mr. Wang Wei.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, welcome to Indonesian platform or Bandung platform. You're not in Indonesia, but I wish you are in Indonesia to join with us. But I need to slightly mention your resume in order for the participant to understand your achievements. So Wang Wei is the Director for Master Planning and Urbanism in Ramboll, Singapore. His subject expertise is in the intersection of land use, urban design, and transport, advocating for walkable, cyclable city as a sustainable city form. So we can see that it's pretty much related with the introduction that I mentioned earlier. So he's at present working on the design of a new township in Vietnam, as well as the development of a smart city strategy for Luang Prabang in Laos PDR. Prior to joining Ramboll, he spent more than a decade in the Urban Area Development Authority, URA, and Ministry of National in Singapore. So welcome, Wang Wei.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Good to meet you all.
Okay, move on to the third speaker, Miss Ray Krishnasamy. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. I'm sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly.
It's okay. You can just
hello,
call me Ray.
Miss Ray.
Hi. Good
Okay.
afternoon, everybody. Just Ray. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Should I call you Ray? Is that fine for you?
That's fine.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Some introduction about her. Ray Krishna leads the transport team in Ramboll, Singapore. which specialize in holistic smart mobility solution for built industry. The team deliver top-notch transport master planning and vehicle and pedestrian simulation, traffic design for transport infrastructure, traffic data collection and analysis in Singapore, and the APEC region. Ray has more than 15 years experience in the transport planning field and advocates a well-rounded transport system which provides easy, accessible, and safe connectivity for people of all age, ability, and needs. It's very interesting. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Okay, so without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to the first presenter, Mas Seno. Yes, you may have the floor, Mas Seno. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mbak Ade. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Hi, let me introduce myself. My name is Seno Pranata. I'm here on behalf of Pak Tuhiyat, and I am as a TOD and Business Development Group Head from PT MITJ, and I will share to you about our company MITJ and also our project and our involvement to develop some of the TOD projects in Jakarta and also Greater Jakarta. Due to some requests, actually, I will present in Bahasa and I will mix up with a little bit of English. So, should we share screen? I will ask my colleague to share the screen. Next. Okay, I will start with about MITJ. MITJ actually is a result of collaboration between regional owned enterprise, which is PT MRT, and state-owned enterprise, which is PT KAI atau Kereta Api Indonesia. And then our vision is about to integrate transportation solution in Jabodetabek, and then we have 4 missions. The first one is ensuring the availability of integrated rail services that are easily accessible, safe, reliable, efficient, sustainable, and to improve life quality. The second one is collaborating with transport ecosystem towards a holistic intermodes integration, operating commercially and maximizing value for money and income beyond ticket revenue. So we're not talking about the fare box revenue, but also about the non-fare box revenue. And then the last one is accelerating inclusive socio-economic development around station, actually through the development of a TOD itself. And about our shareholders is 51% belong to PT MRT and also 49% belong to PT KAI. Next. This is just a quick history about MITJ. So there is a limited cabinet meeting was held by President in January 8, 2019 to initiate the management and integration transportation in the Greater Jakarta. So no, we're not talking about Jakarta anymore, but the Greater Jakarta itself. And then follow up by the government of DKI, by the government regulation number 136, 2019. And then finally in 2020, PT MRT and PT KAI finalized the initiative through the head and shareholder agreement. So basically we have 2 mandate entities. The first one is to manage the integrated railway transport in Jabodetabek. And then the second one is to develop the TOD area in Jakarta and Greater Jakarta. Next. So why MITJ? Basically the president have an idea based on the success story of Hong Kong, Singapore, London, and so on. You name it. the success story of the public integrated transportation service. So as we see in the picture, Hong Kong have a massive railway network, and also integrated not only railway actually, but this one is also integrated with the LRT as a feeder and also the BRT as a feeder. So they have a very good network, and then also integrated seamless connectivity, and then it impact to the next slide, please. Impact to the highest urban mobility actually amongst the 84 cities in the world. So Hong Kong, yeah, we know Hong Kong, very good traffic using the public transport, and also high density development, very integrated, and very seamless to connectivity. Next. Dan kita mulai ke Jakarta. Seperti kita tahu, Jakarta is a global city, but yeah, with all the problems itself, traffic jam, environment degradation, and so on and so on and so on. Next. Tapi perlahan transportasi di Jakarta mulai mengalami perkembangan yang cukup signifikan sebenarnya, bahkan tidak hanya di Jakarta tapi juga di Greater Jakarta. Seperti kita tahu di Jakarta sendiri jaringan busway atau bus Transjakarta sudah hampir masuk ke pelosok, bahkan data terakhir yang saya dapat dari Pemprov DKI hampir 85% lebih wilayah di Jakarta sudah mulai tercakupi oleh jejaringnya Transjakarta. Kemudian di tahun 2019, for the first time we have the MRT Jakarta, dan itu walaupun masih 16 km, 13 stasiun, tapi sudah menunjukkan sesuatu yang sangat signifikan sekali. For the first time we have an urban railway, very reliable, compact, and dan yang terutama lagi sangat bisa diandalkan dalam hal ketepatan waktu. Next. Nah, based on our study, kita sebenarnya melahirkan 6 dimensi transportasi, yaitu physical integration, kemudian management integration, service integration, ticketing integration, provision of information, and also brand integration. Jadi tidak hanya integrasi secara fisik sebenarnya yang kami harapkan dalam pengembangan transportasi di Jakarta dan juga sekitarnya atau Jabodetabek gitu, tapi juga adanya integrasi manajemen seperti kita lihat kayak di Hong Kong tadi, atau di Singapura dipandu dengan LTA, atau di London dengan Transport for London. Kita bisa menciptakan satu service level yang sama, kemudian juga manajemen yang sama. Dan itu tentunya akan menciptakan service yang saling terintegrasi satu sama lain gitu di antara antar moda yang ada. Dan ticketing integration, saat ini kita juga punya anak usaha bersama dengan MRT dan Transjakarta yang bernama Jaklingko. Jadi sudah mulai one ticket for all, one fare for all. Jadi kalau kayak di Singapura ada EasyLink, kemudian di Hong Kong ada Octopus kalau saya nggak salah, kalau di Jepang ada Suica, kita punya Jaklingko namanya. Itu bisa by aplikasi ataupun by tiket. Kemudian ya tentunya provision of information, satu kesamaan informasi dan lain-lain. Dan terakhir sebenarnya integrasi brand. Jadi kebanyakan di ini mewakilkan identitas masing-masing perusahaan gitu. Tapi kita rasa seperti di Jepang atau di Singapura itu semua brand itu bisa sama, dan itu memudahkan orang ketika dia melakukan mobilisasinya atau mobilitasnya atau aktivitasnya dalam penggunaan kereta api ataupun moda-moda lainnya. Next. Nah, ini inisiatif pilot project of physical integration. Jadi seperti yang kalian tahu, Pemprov DKI Jakarta bekerja sama dengan Kementerian BUMN, kemudian ada MRT, PT KAI, dan MITJ sendiri. Sejak tahun 2020 pada saat pandemi, kita memulai something perubahan mendasar sebenarnya dalam integrasi fisik gitu yang terjadi di beberapa stasiun. Contohnya adalah Tanah Abang, seperti kita lihat di gambar sebelah kiri before-nya. Mungkin ada beberapa kalian yang pernah ngalamin sendiri ya, jadi Tanah Abang cukup kusut, bahkan tidak teratur. Kemudian kita melakukan sedikit retouch area yang tidak terpakai menjadi plaza transit yang disertai dengan laybay, angkot, bajai, Transjakarta, bahkan ada ojek ataupun ojol. Dan ini menciptakan satu integrasi tersendiri buat pengguna dari kereta api, gitu. Jadi dan memudahkan perjalanan mereka. Next. Yang kedua, ini Tebet, jadi sama kejadiannya, proyek sangat sederhana sebenarnya untuk memulai tahapan integrasi gitu. Jadi kami mencoba untuk menutup jalan, kemudian merubah itu menjadi plaza, di mana dalam plaza tersebut ada berbagai macam integrasi di dalamnya. Lagi-lagi tidak hanya dengan bus Transjakarta, tetapi juga dengan lain seperti angkot, mikro, saya lupa lagi, mikro trans, kemudian ada ojol dan juga ojek lainnya. Gitu, dan disediakan beberapa fasilitas lain seperti komersial dan juga revitalisasi dari pedestrian koridor yang ada. Next. Yang paling terupdate, ini ada proyek terbaru gitu, jadi Karet Station tidak jauh dari sebenarnya stasiun Duku Atas BNI City dan Sudirman. Jadi kami mencoba menutup perlintasan sebidang atau jalan, kemudian kita mengkonvert itu menjadi transit plaza dan juga ruang-ruang integrasi. Next. Nah, di sini sebenarnya kami mengharapkan dengan adanya tersebut kita mampu menghadirkan ruang-ruang kehidupan baru di Jakarta yang tidak hanya berbasis kepada kendaraan, tetapi menjadi pejalan kaki, sangat berorientasi kepada pejalan kaki dan juga pengguna dari transportasi tersebut. Gitu. Next. Next one is Duku Atas Pedestrian Bridge. Jadi ini sebenarnya proyek ini cukup menarik sekali untuk dikaji sebenarnya. Jadi tahun 2020 Indonesia, sebenarnya seluruh dunia terkena impact dari pandemi COVID. Kemudian tapi beberapa inisiatif tetap tidak bisa harus berjalan atau tidak bisa berhenti gitu, dengan adanya keterbatasan budget dan lain-lain. Kami melakukan kolaborasi antara Kemenhub, Kemen BUMN, MRT Jakarta dan PT KAI serta kami sendiri MITJ. Jadi kami diberikan penugasan untuk membuat sebuah jembatan penghubung antara LRT Duku Atas dengan stasiun Sudirman existing. Dan tentunya kawasan TOD gitu. Nah, tidak ada pendanaan sama sekali dari pemerintah. Kemudian, tapi pemerintah memberi kami kolaborasi dalam bentuk lain, gitu, yaitu kemudahan dalam perizinan, penugasan, pemanfaatan aset dan lain-lain, gitu. Sehingga kami mampu bermitra dengan private untuk menciptakan tipologi dari pedestrian yang baru, gitu. Jadi ini tidak hanya berfungsi sebagai infrastruktur pergerakan pengguna kereta atau pejalan kaki gitu, tapi kita juga masukkan beberapa unsur lain seperti retail. Boleh next slide. Thank you. Jadi seperti akan ada retail, kemudian ada public space gitu, bahkan kita menyiapkan beberapa akses untuk sepeda, jadi untuk menyeberang dan lain-lain. Kami sediakan juga tempat-tempat untuk kalau ada butuh misalnya pameran atau apa gitu. Jadi ini bisa jembatan dengan tipologi baru ini diharapkan tidak hanya menjadi jembatan penghubung atau JPO atau JPM, tetapi ini akan jauh lebih menjadi satu tipologi baru akan infrastruktur gitu, dan tentunya ini tidak hanya menunjang pergerakan dan menciptakan sustainable mobility, tapi juga create cara kerjasama yang baru dan kolaborasi baru antara pemerintah dengan swasta sebenarnya gitu. Jadi sharing ekonomik seperti yang tadi Mbak Ade sampaikan di awal gitu. Jadi sebenarnya sangat menarik, dan saat ini progres sudah mencapai mungkin 65% ya saat ini. This will open soon on probably this year. Next. Nah, tidak hanya dari situ, kemudian kami juga diminta PT KAI sebagai salah satu shareholder kami untuk create new concept of integrated station gitu. Jadi kita coba tidak hanya menciptakan stasiun sebagai pusat transit gitu, tetapi stasiun sebagai lifestyle hub baru dari pergerakan manusia itu sendiri gitu. Tentunya ini juga kerjasama dengan teman-teman dari PSUD yang membantu banyak dalam mendesain dan meng-create tipologi baru dari stasiun-stasiun ini. Jadi stasiun ini kita berharap tidak hanya menciptakan integrasi gitu, tetapi juga untuk untuk bisa menjadi new public space atau new third space in the city gitu. Jadi tidak hanya transit, tapi juga bisa menjadi ruang-ruang kumpul yang baru. Next. And then when we're talking about TOD itself, we also have another mandate to develop a TOD. Dalam perkembangannya, TOD kami bergerak di jalur-jalur kereta api milik PT KAI, jadi kurang lebih di Jabodetabek gitu, dan kita melihat sebenarnya potensi dari TOD itu sangat besar sekali. Jadi tidak hanya increase property value, tetapi juga membuka pilihan dari konektivitas yang ada gitu, bahkan improvement pedestrian, kemudian tentunya intermodal integration, dan juga terciptanya beberapa ruang-ruang publik baru. Next. Dan ini salah satu harapan kami kepada Tanah Abang gitu, di mana kami diminta oleh PT KAI untuk mendevelop Tanah Abang, lagi-lagi dibantu oleh PSUD dan sister company-nya. Jadi kita bikin satu master plan tentang TOD Tanah Abang, di mana tidak hanya berbicara mengenai property value, tetapi kita juga menambahkan beberapa ruang-ruang publik baru, seperti akan ada 12,3 hektar public space baru, kemudian revitalisasi dari Kali Ciliwung itu sendiri, kemudian revitalisasi beberapa pusat-pusat transit yang ada di sana. Kebetulan Tanah Abang akan menjadi new duku atas dengan adanya 5 moda baru, tidak hanya stasiun Tanah Abang, tapi ada MRT fase 3, kemudian ada 2 stasiun LRT tentunya gitu, dan ini tentunya diharapkan dapat menambah ketertarikan orang untuk bergerak kembali ke Tanah Abang. Next. Dan ini kami melihat ada beberapa yang cukup menarik pengalaman kami di MRT ataupun di MITJ gitu, dengan adanya TOD dan pergerakan urban mobility. Ternyata menghadirkan beberapa proyek-proyek revitalisasi yang tentunya mungkin belum seberhasil di beberapa negara maju yang kita lihat atau kota-kota maju yang kita lihat, tetapi tentunya buat saya pribadi ini sudah satu kemajuan lah, karena kebetulan saya lahir dan kecil di Jakarta dan besar di Jakarta, jadi saya tahu Jakarta hampir 40 tahun gitu. Jadi ya ini satu terobosan baru lah gitu. Jadi dengan adanya MRT yang setiap hari akan mengeluarkan 500 penumpang, kami sebenarnya berharap adanya satu pedestrian yang cukup lebar, maka kami coba mempropose, lagi-lagi dibantu sama teman-teman PSUD. Jadi teman-teman PSUD ini banyak sekali berjasa dalam pengembangan Jakarta sebenarnya. Kami mempropose satu inisiatif untuk mengkonvert jalur lambat dari Sudirman Tamrin menjadi revitalisasi menjadi pedestrian. Jadi dengan memperlebar pedestrian, ternyata tidak hanya mendorong orang untuk berjalan gitu, yang dimana kita tahu mungkin orang Indonesia kebanyakan sulit sekali berjalan, tetapi juga ternyata menghadirkan ruang-ruang yang aktif gitu. Jadi zaman COVID itu bahkan di beberapa spot dibantu dengan Pemprov DKI, setiap Jumat itu pasti ada live music gitu. Kemudian orang udah mulai naik skuter dulu, lari sore, jogging dan lain-lain gitu. Bahkan sekarang sebenarnya ketika situasi COVID mulai terkendali, kita sudah bisa melihat lagi orang banyak berlalu lalang gitu. Dan yang paling menarik buat saya adalah dengan adanya pedestrian yang baru dan lain-lain, ternyata kita bisa antri bus dengan rapi gitu. Jadi nggak kayak saya dulu kalau ngejar bus tuh harus lari-lari dan lain-lain. Jadi sebenarnya satu contoh yang sangat menarik dengan dengan inisiatif yang sebenarnya tidak terlalu besar. Next. Kemudian kita juga tahu transformasi jalan Kendal gitu, dari sebuah terowongan jalan yang sangat narrow, gelap, kemudian penuh dengan ojek dan lain-lain, sekarang menjadi new type of public space gitu. Jadi tidak hanya sebagai transit plaza ekstensi dari stasiun Sudirman sebenarnya, tetapi juga jadi arena baru untuk orang sebagai meeting point. Kemudian ada event-event di Jakarta gitu. Bahkan belum lama kita MRT kerjasama dengan Disney Indonesia itu ngadain promo premier film Thor di terowongan Jalan Kendal, dan itu menurut saya jadi menarik sekali gitu dan jadi sangat hidup setiap harinya. Next. Nah kemudian ini salah satu pengalaman lain di MRT, jadi di stasiun Cipete Raya. Jadi kita mencoba untuk berkomunikasi dengan warga throughout their community to involve to create a new urban space in that area. Jadi ada beberapa yang kita benar-benar swadaya seperti mengecat jalan, memberi mark, bahkan menciptakan beberapa poin-poin baru di sepanjang. Jadi ini kita nggak berbicara di Jalan Fatmawati Raya, tapi di second layernya, di mana itu menuju ke sebuah kampung kota yang tepat berada di sisi barat dari stasiun Cipete. Gitu. Ini menjadi sangat penting karena warga tersebut tahu apa yang mereka butuhkan dan apa yang kurang di lingkungannya sendiri gitu. Dan ini menjadi sebuah diskusi yang sangat baik. Waktu itu kita dibantu oleh teman-teman ITDP dalam pelaksanaannya gitu. Bahkan pada saat ini kejadian sebelum COVID, semua warga bisa turun untuk memberikan masukan. Bahkan pada akhirnya mereka swadaya membeli cat, mengecat jalannya sendiri, menciptakan beberapa inisiatif-inisiatif baru di kampungnya gitu. Next. Nah ini mungkin fenomena yang paling grass yang cukup viral di beberapa media sosial, yaitu adanya Citaem Fashion Week. Jadi dulu waktu kami dibantu dengan teman-teman PhD dan sister company-nya mencoba meng-create Taman Kendal, terowongan Jalan Kendal, Taman Duku Atas dan lain-lain, sebenarnya kita tidak berpikir bahwa akan seviral ini gitu. Tapi kami memang menciptakan satu konsep yang benar-benar slow traffic gitu. Jadi di mana orang bisa berlalu lalang di depan Taman Duku Atas dan lain-lain, dilengkapi dengan pedestrian yang nyaman, kemudian adanya Taman Duku Atas dengan berbagai fasilitasnya, kemudian beberapa pelikan crossing gitu. Di awal-awal kami mengidekan ini memang sulit sekali untuk bisa diterima oleh beberapa pemilik properti yang ada di sana gitu. But when it comes MRT itu beroperasi dan ternyata cukup baik dan trafficnya sangat tinggi, ternyata itu bisa menciptakan satu ruang-ruang publik yang baru gitu. Sebenarnya ini kita harapkan juga pola ini bisa kami reply di seluruh pengembangan TOD di Jabodetabek nantinya gitu. Jadi tidak hanya sebagai atau tidak hanya sebagai development atau agent pembangunan, tapi juga agent perubahan akan ruang-ruang kota itu sendiri gitu. Next. Nah, yang paling terakhir adalah sebenarnya di luar itu semua ternyata penduduk Jakarta juga ngalamin perlahan mengalami perubahan kultur, mengalami perubahan perilaku gitu, dari yang car oriented sekali. Dulu saya juga kemana-mana menggunakan kendaraan dan lain-lain gitu, tapi perlahan kita mulai berani turun ke jalan. Pada saat pandemi banyak sekali yang menggunakan sepeda gitu, sampai sekarang gitu. Kemudian adanya infrastruktur baru, penunjang pejalan kaki dan beberapa revitalisasi pejalan kaki. Jadi ini sebenarnya ternyata di luar perubahan ruang kota, tapi juga ini membangkitkan kembali perubahan perilaku dari penduduk Jakarta tersebut gitu. Jadi kita berharap dengan adanya MITJ, integrasi pengembangan TOD throughout the Jabodetabek, kita berharap ini juga mampu menghadirkan perubahan-perubahan perilaku yang ada, dan sehingga terciptanya sebuah kota yang lebih sustain, kota yang lebih green, dan tentunya kota yang sangat ramah terhadap manusia dan juga pejalan kakinya itu sendiri, dan terutama kota yang akan menghadirkan sebuah sistem transport yang sangat baik dan reliable. Next. So I think that's all our presentation and our sharing about MITJ and also our project and how we're going to deliver all the project and our vision and our mission throughout the integration of transportation in Greater Jakarta actually. So I will give it back floor to Mbak Ade. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Seno. Very clear and concise introduction, not introduction, very holistic presentation about how MITJ already work hard on not only introducing TOD, but also try to really took the challenge of TOD into several higher level actually. So there are several points that I want to conclude based on your presentation. I will use English first and then I'll switch it to Bahasa later on. So I can see that there is a sort of the introduction to switching the paradigm from MITJ, not only seeing the mobility as a part of infrastructure process, but also generating the urban life in an urban area. That's very much important and then has been explained throughout the presentation. So it was a very hard test, I believe, because back then when I remember when PSUD just started the TOD project, it was hard for us to really switch the paradigm among decision maker. Thought that switching from the vehicle oriented into the pedestrian oriented development, the implementation of the MRT had only been thought that it was only focusing on the switching the infrastructure, not necessarily generating the urban life, the new urban lifestyle. And then the second point that I captured from your presentation is that the area of the TOD itself is switching from the terminal base into the transit hub. And the transit hub itself includes the activity of how people transit. People transit will be, doing something else rather than just, going through from one mode to another mode. But there's several other activity that needs to be adopted or even accommodated in the transit hub. And then that's how MITJ cleverly accommodate those activities, or even they try to generate many other urban life in the TOD hub area. Is such a very clever moves. And then another point that I capture from your presentation is that you're offering not only as a generator of the urban life or urban transit life, but also transformer or even inspirator for the future generation. For example, for those who don't have enough public space in their area, they can use the urban area as their stage to try to shout their existence. For example, the urban area. I don't know. It's your call. But and then the last thing that you also mentioned, that it is important to have a very good urban management in terms of how many parties are going to involve in the development of the TOD area. You mentioned also the community involvement that is pretty much provenly very beneficial in using the urban area. So I hope I concluded perfectly, but sorry if I missed some of your points. But then we're moving on to our second and third presenter. I forgot to mention about the time frame for each speakers, but Pak Seno, luckily that you are pretty much consistent with the time frame. Thank you very much. So for the second and the third speakers, I believe you both are going to join, present your material. So it would be 30 minutes for both of you, I guess. So yeah, so let's move on. And I would like to pass the floor for the second and the third speakers. Please, you may have the floor. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. We are sharing the screen now. Okay, so this afternoon, we're talking on the topic you see on the screen here, in pursuit of TODs, a yin and yang approach. So at this point, I would like everyone to take particular attention to this title, especially on two phrases, TODs and the phrase yin and yang, because at the end of our session, we would have a reflection on these two phrases, and we have a slightly different take on the phrases. Just very quickly, our company Ramboll in very brief. So we are an independent architecture engineering consultancy firm founded in Denmark in 1945. Our HQ is based in Copenhagen. We've got 16,500 professionals across 35 countries, and we have a particular stronghold in the Nordics. We practice across different markets, planning and urban design, where my colleague Wang is from, environment and health, energy, water, buildings, and transport, where I sit. Our strategy, our new strategy for Ramboll is to be the partner for sustainable change. Everything we do will be aligned to our 4 unifying themes, which happen to be the biggest and toughest global challenges we face today. So the first one, decarbonize for net zero. Ramboll aims to become the global leader in the professional services in the industry in the green energy transition. Second point, the resilient societies and livability. We will deliver on our urban offering that provides sustainable living in harmony with nature and building a resilient infrastructure and low carbon mobility systems. Across the resource management and circular economy, we have circular practices to protect natural resources and minimize and reuse waste. On biodiversity on biodiversity and ecosystems, we work to stop and then reverse the loss of biodiversity by delivering nature positive solutions that will improve biodiversity and restore our ecosystems. Okay, so this afternoon we'll be covering like 4 sections. The first part, we will talk about the transport challenges that we currently face in Indonesian cities. And this is where we will need your input to provide us with your suggestions in an interactive session. So this just a heads up, you can have your mobile phones ready to participate in about a minute's time. And then for the second point, my colleague Wang will talk about the future possibility of TODs and the vision for the term TOD. And then Wang will also run through a project example that our teams in Ramboll here, the multidisciplinary teams, have participated to help to envision and deliver a project in Singapore, which is on the northeast side of Singapore. And finally, we'll conclude the section with some learning points, and we will reflect on the title of our session today. So first, like I promised, we would have an interactive session. So if I could get everyone's participation to go to www.menti.com and input the code that you see on screen, the 8-digit code that you see on screen, or you can just scan the QR code that you can see on the screen as well. This is an anonymous participation, so I really encourage everyone to join in.
Was the time too short for people to capture your QR code?
Oh, yes.
Hopefully not.
Can you go back to that slide?
Yeah, a little bit, just give them a little bit longer. I was trying to do so, but
you can see it on the screen. Actually, if you can go to www.menti.com and then use the 8-digit code that way. Yeah.
28557954.
Okay, got it. Thank you. We will distribute this number to the chat room. Thank you.
Give it some likes if you're participating, please. Jempolnya. Kita udah punya 30 peserta. There's 50 people here. Come on. Right, I see some more people coming in. Mulai masuk. Right. Okay. Right, maybe we just start. 34, 35, yeah, some more. Thanks, good. Right, I think we just make it short. Let's see how we can participate all. I believe everyone want to hear as well, everyone aspiration, inspiration in cities in Jakarta. So yeah, let's think before we go to Jakarta, let's think about Bandung now. I think, yeah, for everyone who resides in Bandung, who commutes in Bandung, or even having a business trip there, thinks about Bandung now. So yeah, we want to know if you thinking about the convenience of waiting time there, average travel time there in Bandung. What do you think? How happy do you think using the angkot NTMB, the bus in Bandung? Gimana angkot di sana, Transmetro Bandung, gimana menurut kita di sana? Seberapa happy sih kita? Atau mungkin ada yang naik angkot senang, terus.
Submit lagi ya?
Ya, oke. Kemudian satu kata, one word, apa yang kamu pikirkan tentang public transport di Bandung? Yang kamu suka atau nggak suka? Macet, capek, atau wow, unorganized, traffic jam, lagi-lagi messy ya. Ngetem, wow. Nice, good to hear. Traffic jam ya, masih menguasai. Ngetem is the biggest one, so they are stopping anywhere.
Yep, and I can understand panas, very hot.
Nice, thanks everyone. All right, that's great. And then let's see the next one. Now we see about Jakarta, right? The same thing. If you imagine that you live in Jakarta, the question is, if you have a car or motorcycle, will you commute by bus or MRT? Nowadays, we know there's MRT. Yes, yes, exactly. That's we want to see. So 27 people, yes, we see the progression in Jakarta. Yeah, we truly get, we saw it from MITJ just now. Right, 37 people. Nice, nice all. So one word, what do you like or dislike about public transport in Jakarta?
You mean the public transport, including the MRT one?
Yes, of course. We already have it. Coverage, nice. We want one more. We good coverage. Improving, yes.
Let's spend a little bit more time on this. I want to see more.
Oh, you want to see more? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, reliability is on the first.
It's interesting that they spoke about lack of last mile connection as well, reachability, very interesting concepts.
PWD lag. Nice.
Yeah, that's the homework.
Nice.
So we can see here there's a mixture of some positive and some not so positive responses here.
Improving. Yeah, reliable. Price, some little say price as well. Going better.
Okay.
Looks it's stopping 42 people. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Now let's think about you. So here, what do you think about? What's the question here? Yeah, what do you need now for a better travel experience in your cities anywhere in Indonesia, Jakarta, Bandung, Medan, Surabaya? As a facilities, you need more shelter, you need aircon, enforcement. Just tell us. We have seamless movement.
Real-time tracking.
Real-time tracking, awesome.
Yeah, you can hold on this as well.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts about integration and proximity as well. Connection. Interesting, safer travel, especially for women. I think that thinking about how women can use public transport will be very key.
Integration, compact. More headways, yeah, reliability is the key, isn't it?
Yeah, the seamless movement has been repeated several times.
Yeah. Integration, proximity, density.
End-to-end transport system, last mile.
Free internet, yes. We can't be without internet nowadays. Yes.
Right, looks that is all. And let's go to the next one. So imagine you commute from suburb to the city center where you work. What would be the ideal travel time that you're expecting to travel from office to home to office in the future? Wow. Right. More expecting a very quick journey time, less than 30 minutes.
We're so done with the longer traffic, with the longer time travel.
Yes, and the sensors show that very clearly.
Yep.
Yeah, below 30 minutes is okay, but after above 30 minutes is just unnecessary, I guess.
Okay.
Right, the thing is, yeah, so just there. Right, let's move to the last one. So in your opinion, what do you think smart mobility is in your city? Apa sih smart mobility menurut kita di tempat kita, di kota kita? 5-minute city.
15-minute city. Wow. That's the first thing that came up.
It's
well linked.
Time with the earlier question.
Jetpack.
Jetpack. Fascinating. Personal cargo bikes, commercial cargo bikes, flying buses. Low energy. Interesting. Energy is going to be a big issue for us in future.
autonomous transport. Good point there. A flying bus.
Flying bus, nice. Accessible integration.
Yeah, I would add reliability, I guess.
Walking radius, walkable, quite a fair bit related to walking, cycling, active mobility, 5-minute neighborhood, 15-minute cities.
Right. To everyone there. All right, I think, yeah, that's sum up this session. So yeah, thanks for everyone participation. I think, yeah, it's good to have you all. Thanks. So maybe I offer to Ray and
So yeah, thank you. So that interactive session showed very clearly the aspirations Indonesians have, and it's in the right direction, all the comments. So that's the vision, and we have to go towards that. Okay, so just a little bit, I'll touch on some challenges that still may exist in Indonesian cities today. So here we can see the public transport mode share between the various cities you can see here. And like our first speaker, Mr. Seno, talked about Hong Kong as a city, and you can see the transport share. Sorry, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So you can see that the public transport share in Hong Kong is really high at 88%. And Singapore with 51%, London with 37%. And you can see the four larger Indonesian cities having a lower take-up rate of public transport as a mode, and also a low take-up rate on the non-motorized side of travel, like walking, cycling, and active mobility means of traveling. So if we compare the public transport mode share against the population densities of these cities, we can see on the average, the Indonesian cities come below the line, and that's where we need to move things up with, hopefully with the vision that we all share. So over the last 3 to 5 years, public transport within the cities have been improving tremendously. You can see more rail-based transit, road-based transit, and more focus given towards pedestrians and public transport connectivity. So the government's vision here in the major cities is for Jakarta, for the public transport mode share to reach 60% by 2030. Currently, it stands at 24%. The vision for Bandung's public transport mode share to be 25% by next year. Currently, it's 18%. And the vision for Surabaya and Medan to implement more road-based kind of mass transit and explore for the rail-based kind of mass transit by 2024.
So I guess the question that we would have, therefore, is how do we achieve that? And this is also the question that we start with for this specific talk, which is talking about sustainable mobility in future Indonesian cities. Now, I think earlier Mr. Seno also spoke quite at length about transit-oriented developments. Things that about transit-oriented developments, and he gave a very good run through of how MITJ has been actually implementing it, especially in and around railway stations within Jakarta. We see all the very great the upcoming new train stations, which are really commendable. And I do want to encourage everyone to continue to do this, to pursue this. But today, actually, we want to play around with the TOD word, and we want to push the boundary a bit further. So earlier, I believe Ms. Ade also spoke about how PSUD, when the TOD concept first came along, there was the need to really undertake a paradigm shift. So perhaps as a way to achieve sustainable mobility, we may need to take the next shift. And this is where we want to say, perhaps we need to shift from transit-oriented developments into transit-oriented districts. Now, the concept, obviously, you can see that there is quite a certain difference between the two of them. So let's start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint you a model. Obviously, this is hypothetical. Obviously, this is going to be theoretical at the moment, but we start with a theoretical city and we ask, how could this transit-oriented district look like? We start with the city, of course, and the center of the city is the railway station. And we see that there are transit-oriented developments already built around it. Integrated, high density, the typical characteristics that just now Mr. Seno has spoken about. But what if we can actually expand this and think about it further? So we use a distance of 2 kilometers. And the reason why we use 2 kilometers as our district is simply because we were working on a good framework. Earlier, just now, a lot of people mentioned about 15-minute cities, 5-minute neighborhoods. So 2 kilometers roughly will be a very great cyclable, last mile transit oriented, like buses, trams. There's sort of distance that can easily be covered within 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes, actually, you roughly will be walking about 600, 800 meters. So actually, we are actually expanding that scope to be able to include parts of these actually within the concept. So let's start with this hypothetical large city. How does it look like? We are going to start to build, looking at the concept. Of course, we know that the mass rapid transit station is at the center of it all. It's hard, where it anchors. You can travel in and out into other suburbs, into the central business district, central activity district with it. In and around it, you want to have a walkable core. This is a walkable core that just now we talked about, including transit-oriented developments, I would say within 400, 600 meters distance away. You then want to move beyond that, start to include a cyclable ring. And even beyond that, you can start to infill with creating for last mile shuttle services. In fact, planning for the future, if we even have autonomous vehicles, that could really be an aspect that can be considered when it comes to talking about serving the city. Now, this really is just setting a very simplistic framework in terms of thinking about the various types of transit modes and the distance that it serves. But there is one other thing that we need to think of, and we need to start to think about this. How does the built environment respond to this? So obviously, when you are at the last mile, you're at the fringes, you need to find your way in. How would you go through? A typical transit mode obviously will go in a line, you will actually take into a bus, you take a tram, and it will take you in. But what this means is that there's a need for us to start to think about how the whole district development would actually take shape and take form. We could start to introduce things like medium density mixed-use corridors that will help to anchor your various tram lines, your bus lines that can really take you in from the edge of the district down into the center very quickly. It will also mean that within these districts, you would also need to have mixed-use activities that will be where you can go shop, do your daily groceries, daily shopping, go to visit the barber, go to the doctors. You anchor that subsequently with medium to high density in a ring surrounding it. And obviously, within your walkable core, you want to really pursue very high density, very integrated developments within the area. Now, what you see, right, is really a very, very simplistic approach in which how transport and land use and urban development, urban design goes hand in hand together. Now, there is a reason why we talked about this, because earlier we spoke about transit-oriented developments. We're now talking about transit-oriented districts. They go hand in hand. So let's go back in to our zoom back into our little core again. What are some of the characteristics within the core that we want to continue to have? And I believe earlier other speakers also mentioned and spoke about this. If we think from a transport perspective, there will be quite a fair bit of transport facilities that you need to introduce. This includes things like thinking about park and ride, bus, trams, AV transfer stations, thinking about active mobility, facilitating ease of really transfer between or the high capacity passenger transfers, even last mile connectivity. But this also needs to be complemented by all your various land use interventions, for instance, in thinking about high density, about mixed users, walkable streets, integrated developments, really public and community spaces. All these have been also earlier mentioned. Now, the whole intent that I'm trying to talk about this from a TOD, from a transit-oriented district perspective, and a TOD from a transit-oriented development perspective is simply this, that transport and land use urban design must go hand in hand if you want this concept to work. So if you're going to think about the future of sustainable mobility in Indonesian cities, in future Indonesian cities, as well as including in existing Indonesian cities, this means that both your transport planning, as well as your land use planning and urban design must go hand in hand. And this is the concept that we were talking about and Ray was alluding to. Really, it's about yin and yang. They are sides of the same coin, two sides of the same coin, essentially. You can imagine if your transport policy goes in one direction, your land use policy goes in another direction, what you end up having is that you're having very distorted and separated, segmented policy directions. And that in itself always leads to a lot of issues. So what we want to do now is really paint you a very simple vision of what it's like to actually live in such a transit-oriented district. Two very visionary, I would say, very simple stories. We adapted them from the Land Transport Authority master plan in Singapore. So I think on the left, we see Park Joko. He really used to commute with his own car to the office. But because with the combination of park and ride at Lebak Bulus, as well as AVDRS in the CBD, has basically reduced his travel needs by car. So essentially, if there's going to be more shuttle services, earlier we spoke about AV shuttles, to really his residents, he can really convert his travel completely with public transport. So that's one end user perspective. The other, let's look at Rina. She just recently graduated, really to start first job. Now, a very affordable residential place in Tangerang with convenient and safe environment has made her take up to decide to cycle or to even take the direct shuttle bus to office. Very simple, very quick, very efficient. Now, really, this painting these ideals and these pictures give us a sense of what we could envisage, how potentially such transit-oriented districts could look like. Now, of course, we know that we started with the hypotheticals. Now we're going to start to showcase how we actually think it could be implemented. And as a start, I wanted to use a project that I think Ray mentioned about. This is actually in Singapore. So I wasn't involved from Ramboll's perspective in this project, but I was involved in the URA when I was in the government in this project. So to me, this was a project that I felt best encapsulated the spirit of the transit-oriented district. Granted, this is obviously not in full. Just now earlier, we shared the hypothetical model, the hypothetical concept. This is a real-life model that's being implemented as we speak. The areas are mostly going to be ready in 2024. So I'm looking forward to see how it's actually going to be implemented in real life. But what I want to do is to tell you that actually transit-oriented districts can be a reality. They can be realized. And it's not something that is very far-fetched, very out of touch, but it can be something that is a desirable vision and goal that we can think about for even future Indonesian cities. So let's start. Really, the area that we're talking about is in the northeastern part of Singapore. It's really at the tip, and over at standing at the edge, you can really see Malaysia in front of you. The whole district was essentially designed by the authorities as an integrated live, work, study, play district. Later, I'm going to try to break down all these various terms. Now, this is a district that's actually, maybe I would say, about I don't have the full size, but probably I would say maybe 50 to about 100 hectares in size, comprising a mixture of the university, business parks, retail, housing, parks, greenery, recreation, water bodies, roads, transport, community facilities, schools. It's a very large mix of activities that really came in together in a very intense combination. Now, at the heart and at the center of it is really a new MRT station that's going to come up. It's called Punggol Coast MRT station that is part of the Northeast Line. Around the Punggol Coast MRT station, about 50 hectares has been devoted and set aside for a business park and a university. The business park is run by JTC. You can see the logo that's on the left. And the university is actually one of Singapore's newest autonomous universities. It's called the Singapore Institute of Technology. And they'll be consolidating their campus all across into this area. So this 50 hectares is actually going to cater to new digital new digital media, cybersecurity sort of firms that will be anchoring this area. At the same time, they wanted to play off the strengths of the university in teaching applied engineering sort of topics in cybersecurity, in IT, and they wanted to put together the concept of learning, working together, apprenticeships. You can now you attend school, you can just walk over, and then you can have your apprenticeship at one of the firms that's next to it. At the heart of it really is the center, the train station. It has a bus interchange, walkable streets, very clear public spaces, as you can see. That's what we call the campus boulevard. There will also be new parks, community centers, hawker centers as well. What I also want to mention is that Punggol Digital District wasn't just designed to be purely just a business park or a university. It was actually designed to function two other purposes. The first is that it is really the neighborhood center for the entire larger Punggol North. It is the center where residents in the various residential parts can actually come to on a day-to-day basis to eat, to buy your groceries, to visit the doctor. The second was that Coney Island, which just now you would have seen, actually is a very nice recreational rustic park that's just off northeastern part. Access to the site is not easy, but once the MRT opens, the entire site has been designed to really bring people and allow people to really get ease of access to the Coney Island as well. So when you think about it, right, PDD also doubles out and functions as a recreational spot, including on the weekends. What this means is that you're looking at a district that's essentially vibrant on a day-to-day, almost 24-hour basis. Now, as I shared, slightly just beyond, within walkable distances, about 400 or 500 meters, you'll see the new upcoming public housing sites, integrated into greenery, integrated into pathways, trails, cycling paths that really lead you as a resident to Punggol Coast, such that it's very easy to really access. So the concept pre-COVID is really this. If you are a resident living in Punggol Point or living in North Shore, which is the area to the west, when you came back from work, I mean, at the time pre-COVID, you were working in downtown, you took the train, you came back, you're hungry, you go to the hawker center, which is just located in Punggol Digital District. You can go for your night classes to learn and improve. And then after that, you walk home. And then you can repeat as you head to work, or over the weekend, you can actually head down to Coney Island. Or if you're a visitor or a student, you can actually take the train down, and it's very accessible, very easy. So really the concept that is behind the whole of Punggol North has been designed really essentially based on the principles that we spoke about, transit-oriented districts, where transport, walkability, cyclability, car lights, future mobility systems go very much hand in hand with land use, goes very much hand in hand with urban design. And I think I cannot stress that sufficiently, because this project wouldn't have been able to work if either of them went off balance. Imagine that if now we put the MRT station and all surrounding it is all low density, you won't be able to generate that sufficient crowd that's able to have catchment for the MRT station. But at the same time, you're not really benefiting from the fact that you have a train station that's able to have and ferry people around. So really, those two components go very much hand in hand. And I think that that's something that we really do want to stress as we talk about transit-oriented districts as a possibility for future Indonesian cities.
Yes, with that, we come to our last section, which is on the learning points for the future of Indonesian cities. We frame that up into 3 steps. First step being getting the foundations right. So within the land use and urban design, we have our KPIs and our strategies. Within the mobility, we have KPIs, strategies, policies. And so maybe if I go down to the land use and urban design strategies and policies. So like Wang said, high densities around the MRT stations for the catchment of the masses, integrated mixed use developments, which are connected to the train stations seamlessly. This was a word that came up in the Mentimeter session, seamless. So transfer facilities, barrier-free walkways, these play a part in that seamless connection. Public and community spaces, which can be used 24/7 if possible, like in the daytime, it's got a different use, nighttime, different use. And then guiding how development and density can take place with design-led policies. And on the mobility side of the strategies, the travel behavior and education is key. It can run parallel with the design side, but I think it's key to start promoting the mindset for the switch to non-motorized transport. We need to have the seamless transfer for better transport integration, more activities with the travel demand management measures, and implementation of the mass rapid. And we need to promote the transport policies and enforcement. Okay, so they need to be hand in hand. So with that, so this is a landscape for integrated design and focus on active mobility, with more walkable spaces, more integrated spaces, more barrier-free access, paths for connectivity, not only for active mobility users, but also those with accessibility needs, those in wheelchairs, those with user profiles of different demographics. The next frame, okay, so these are points to make those little moves, like the lane dieting, road dieting, some raising the platform and the surface texture, chicanes to slow down the traffic, road diverters to slow down traffic as well. The second point on framing the next step is we can take intermediate steps and have hybrid models while we transition to the vision that we are looking at. So for example, this is a street in Singapore, which is fully pedestrianized overnight. And then in the daytime, it's used to access for service vehicles. So there can be a hybrid model and a gradual transition towards a more focus on pedestrianization. And this is Bengkulan Street in Singapore, where the focus has shifted more towards a favorable streetscape with bus prioritization and active mobility. And the third step we would see here is tapping into technology and the smart systems that are already here and that are coming up, to include them as an integral part of this yin and yang equation to optimize our mobility strategies, actually in view of sustainability mainly. So not to go into detail, there's a whole range of these systems, from e-mobility, autonomous vehicles, mobility as a service, ITS systems, electrification infrastructure. So these things also play an integral part. With that, I come to the last slide, which is going back to the title again that we started off with, and where we emphasize the phrases TODs and yin and yang. So this is pushing the boundaries a little bit from transit-oriented developments towards the transit-oriented districts perspective, where two core areas exist hand in hand, the yin and the yang, the landscape design and the mobility strategies. And how we implement them, we get the foundations right. We start small with hybrid measures, and we think systems and technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Ray and Mr. Wang. Yeah, very interesting perspective, and then also several one big example and several other insights from Singapore. I would like to a little bit conclude your presentation, probably in Bahasa because you already talk in English. So for those who needs to speak, I will explain in Bahasa. Sorry for that. Ya, jadi Ibu Ray dan Bapak Wang ini mencoba membukakan satu pemikiran di mana TOD tidak saja dilihat sebagai transit oriented development di dalam satu titik yang berradius tadi disebut berapa 250 meter ya radiusnya, tapi jauh lebih besar lagi dan semuanya di-expand dari satu titik itu menjadi lebih besar. Dan kemudian pada radius yang lebih besar hingga 2 km tersebut, disitulah kemudian berbagai moda transportasi juga tetap diupayakan dari mulai walkable yang lebih besar, cyclable dan sebagainya. Tapi akibatnya walaupun expansion itu dari satu titik TOD, semua yang menyangkut kepada yang disebut transition itu juga akan diupayakan terintegrasi. Jadi walaupun expansion, semua urban amenity-nya dikaitkan. Salah satu yang beberapa yang paling besar yang diingatkan kembali oleh dua speakers tersebut adalah land use dan satu lagi tadi apa ya, lupa saya. Tapi land use ya yang paling besar. Dan land use itu akan terkait tidak saja dari desainnya, urban design, tapi juga policy direction yang dibutuhkan sekali. Karena pengkondisian tersebut tidak akan bisa kalau tidak ada assessment dari policy-nya, baik dari radius 250 ataupun lebih besar lagi. Kemudian poin lain yang disampaikan oleh kedua speakers tersebut adalah mereka memberikan salah satu contoh di Punggol, di mana kawasan tersebut dikondisikan untuk punya 4 macam assessment, yaitu bisa live, living, working, playing, and studying, yang kebetulan memang di dalamnya ada university, dan kita bisa lihat semua urban amenities-nya dikaitkan ke semuanya, pada titik orang bisa mobile dengan mudah, baik itu lewat jalan kaki, yang kemudian dilanjutkan lewat sepeda, ataupun lewat public transport, kebutuhan juga dipenuhi dengan land use yang tepat, pada sistematika radius yang berbeda dengan land use yang berbeda juga, semuanya istilahnya mereka hand in hand untuk melengkapi yang disebut transit oriented district tadi. Kira-kira begitu, sedikit saja. But I would like to also little bit because there's a very interesting point that you mentioned. Particularly the second point, the one that you mentioned about like hybrid thing, about start from the small thing and then work with what you have. This is very interesting because this is what I think the struggle that an Indonesian is facing, that our city has been built way before the introduction of the MRT or TOD itself. So the land use structure has been given, yeah, and sometimes the travel behavior has been created in a certain way, the way people travel, the way people transit, and then it's such a struggle for us and for planners in particular to invent a new system. And that's why your second point is pretty much helpful and then benefiting for us, because yeah, we probably need to focus on small things, hybriding a lot of things, because we need to deal with a given context while introducing a new context. So yeah, that's all for me. And then now, yeah, let's try to open the Q&A section. And the organizer has been helping me collecting the question here. I'll try to, yeah, there are probably like one person at a time, and then for those who can answer it, please do so. I'll start with a question from Kun Brusma. Oh, it's from Ramboll. So he or she, I don't know, probably he he mentioned about, since most Indonesian cities also struggle with water management, what are your thoughts on integrating water into mobility solutions? For example, less space for roads, cars, and more for waterways, and use those for transport of people and goods. Wow, this is a new thing. So the mode of transportation itself is not on the asphalt, but also on the waterways, I guess. So any thought from any of the speakers, please?
Ray, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can go first, and it'll be interesting to see the thoughts of Wang and Mr. Seno as well.
Yeah, please.
For me, I feel like waterways, they have value to activate spaces for livability. So you can have waterside living, you can activate those spaces for parks, for more like community spaces. And also they've got a lot of value in terms of biodiversity. So making that mainstream transport might devalue those aspects in terms of biodiversity. But having said that, this can be looked into in a case-by-case basis, especially when electrification of water means like ferries and ships are becoming electrified. So we can look at green kind of transport on waterways without affecting the biodiversity side of things. Yeah. So Wang Wei.
Okay, I think Kion's comment was really in the context of thinking about existing cities, and given the fact that there are several, I would say several trends that are taking place. The first is, I think Ms. Ade also mentioned it. A lot of the cities are actually existing and built up. You look at Jakarta, you look at Bandung, a lot of places have already been established. The urban grain has already been put there. The question, but what we're actually encountering and what we are facing is the fact that firstly, a lot of the cities are still congested. There's a lot of demand asking for road widening, increases in your road capacity that actually is going to take up land. I think that's the first point. The second point is that, but we're also seeing with climate change, a lot of the cities, especially in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, I mean, you just read recently about the floods in Seoul. They're also facing very intense climate challenges that's happening at the same time. Sorry, I spoke a bit too quickly. Climate challenges that are also happening, and what that means is that there is a need to also think about space for water. Now, so what I think that can be done is that there are two ways that we need to think about it. The first is to really understand at the strategic level, at your city level, what really are your water needs and what are your transport needs. If you have that vision, then the question that you can ask is, can they go together? Or are they going to be running parallel? Now, what do I mean by this? So in Copenhagen, actually, there was a project that, not my team, but Ramboll in Denmark, they actually did, whereby they were looking at what they call a cloudburst study. So what happened was in both New York and Copenhagen, there were very heavy downpours that took place over the last decade. And the city government were looking at ways in which they could really strengthen the resilience of the cities. Now, where transport infrastructure came along was because the cities were as built. When there was heavy downfall, where would the rain go? How do they actually accommodate them? So what they did, and they did this very cleverly, was to convert some roads to intentionally let them flood during heavy downfalls. So the idea was that the roads could also double as a water detention basin during those times. And then when the water flooded, left off, then obviously it resumed and it became part and parcel of your normal travel connectivity again. Now in Singapore, we also have an example where we use a park instead of a road. We use a park that doubled as a flood detention basin. So the concept behind this is not just about roads and flood detention basins or about this multiple users, but it's about seeing which are the types of facilities that we can try to double up in terms of their use. So I think that's the first concept. Now, obviously, if there's a need to really dedicate space for wider canals or wider roads, I think we need to really be sure of that. That would be obviously come first. But if there is insufficient space, and if there's a need to really cater for things from a time dimension, the question is, can we do so in a very clever and innovative way? And I guess the research or the implementation suggests that it is possible through smart engineering, through smart design. So I think that it is possible to see how those two can be put together. The third also, I would say, really is that if you are really pursuing a very, what I call a car-like vision and car-like design outcome, then yes, by all means, you would want to reduce the road space because you want to move people to public transport, you want to move people into trains and stuff, and you want to encourage cycling, walking, and you can also integrate all your bioswales, you can integrate all your detention basins into that sort of space as well. So I think that there are multiple tracks, but I think it really is down to the priorities as well as the leadership of your government authorities. Okay, sorry, I said quite a fair bit. Mr. Seno, please, if you have any comments.
Okay, thank you, Wang. So I will give you another perspective, probably a bit of a practical perspective. So what I have in my mind, waterways is a very another good public transport, but and in Jakarta also have a potential because if I'm not mistaken, we have 14 to 16 river cover Jakarta and link to the Jakarta Bay. Yeah, but the problem is, it's clear that we have a problem with the water management, and also, if I'm not mistaken, a former governor, there's several former governors try to build the waterways, but the problem in a technical level is very. There's a lot of problem in technical ways. Yeah, so like Wang said, that if we want to make it happen, we have to give a very big effort, not only effort actually, but also a big budget, and cover all the technical problem in 14 to 16 river in Jakarta. It's not as easy as you think. Yeah, but the problem, but the idea is very nice because some of it is a very old river, and if we can try to create more activity so we can increase the riverside life, and it could be a very good another public space actually in Jakarta. And but the problem is we need more than one or two effort and a very big budget to clear up all the water management problem.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been intrigued by this question actually, because the way the question is posed is actually struggle with water management. And the question is, my question is water management in terms of water transport management or water pollution assessment management, right? Because if we are talking about the water transport management, for sure, not only in Jakarta, like throughout Indonesian city, there are a lot of people, students, workers who still use and utilize water transport, going to their office, going to their working area. Even in Java, for example, students are using waterways to go to their schools, for example. So the question of integrating into transit-oriented development that has, for example, another mode, which is MRT or another public transport, should they include the waterways, waterway transport system? If I may say, yes, we need to include that if the pattern of the transport pattern has been used for generation, for example. And then we can see the example from New York and Manhattan area with the other, enclave area in Brooklyn and the Queens as well. They're using the ferry to go from Brooklyn to the Manhattan, for example. And the thing is, the Manhattan Authority system, they try to include it in the TOD system networking. So once you get out from the ferry, and then immediately you have the pedestrian way go through the MRT to go to the middle of CBD area of Manhattan. That's just a thought. I think the question is all about. I'm not sure about the question, but leave it that way. We can have more discussion about that. Let's move on to the second question. But thank you very much though for the answers. So the second question now. Okay, this is from Karel Putra. We have seen bureaucracy get in the way of providing reliable service, such as in water supplies in many Indonesian cities. So the question is, how can bureaucratic obstacles be overcome to provide quality services for the benefit of the city residents? Okay, who's gonna start? Please, Mr. Wang or Pak Seno. I believe Pak
Please,
Seno
Mr. Wang.
Will start it over because this is
Yeah.
bureaucracy, I assume.
Yeah, but but I don't know how to answer this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, actually the bureaucracy now, especially in Jakarta, is a very now it's getting better and better, and I don't know, I don't know in another city in Indonesia, but now I believe they are getting better and better, and then the government also try to apply the good governance approach. So and from the state governor into the regional governor, and now they have a mission and a vision of to become a sustainable city and also green city. So I believe they are getting better and better. But to be honest, I can speak very clear in here.
Okay, maybe I chime in. In my mind, there are perhaps two things. The first is to really ask whether can this service be delivered by only the government, or can the private sector also be involved? So probably that's the first question that I will pose. So if it can be provided for by the private sector, for instance, perhaps like in this case, maybe parts of the metro service or certain other services, then perhaps a question that could be asked is whether that could be an option as an operational model in which the services will be delivered by the private sector, and hopefully in the private sector, the bureaucracy will be less and that they can also deliver it. But my personal sense is a lot of the services that you're talking about are public goods, which essentially would always be provided by governance. So I would just echo Mr. Seno's point in that governance ultimately is still an issue, and that there's really no way around. I mean, even in Singapore, we face bureaucracy. If you talk to the Europeans, they'll tell you the levels of layers or red tape that they have to go through. So I think bureaucracy is something that we can't run away with. The question is how, as a government, the government is willing to take leadership to improve that sense of governance. I think that one way in which bureaucracy can be improved, and I've seen it being done, is a mixture of using digital tools, digitalization, as well as changing your work processes. For example, in Singapore, we used to have what we call parking coupons. So if you need to go to park in a public lot, you need to have this parking coupons, and that required that you need to go to a shop like a 7-Eleven to buy the parking coupons. But obviously, it was very tedious, and sometimes you run out of parking coupons, or everything was based on like, you have to tear in like 30-minute block or 15-minute block. You don't really have that flexibility. But what happened was the government stepped in and said, let's use sensors and let's use an app, and then you can do everything like from like just pay everything online. You can even extend your parking if you need to online through the app without even needing to go back to the car. So what they did was that they used digital tools to streamline workflows and work processes, and obviously that helped on the back end and that helped on the front end in terms of being more customer-centric, in terms of being more user-centric as well. So I think Ray touched quite a fair bit earlier about smart technologies, and I do believe and I do think that smart technologies can support improvement of bureaucracy. But ultimately, it will have to tie hand in hand with A, good governance, improving governance, B, really being able to digitalize your work processes as well. So that's my personal take.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Seno dan Mr. Wang. Yeah, very interesting because as I mentioned that the urban area in Indonesia has been given or has been built, and then it's hard for us to making a big change. We need to make it like from small steps, baby steps. But I believe that apply also in Indonesian government. Our government has established for so long thinking that vehicle-based transportation is the best one, and then switching it into transit-based development is was kind of hard at the beginning. But again, as the urban area evolved into the transit-based district, so then also the government, I can see that they also evolve. So there were so many reluctant from the government at the beginning of the project of MRT in Jakarta. But then when they realized that having integrated and easy bureaucracy for investor or private sector to be involved in the transit area development project would be benefiting for anyone. I believe the bureaucracy is also getting better. But again, it needs to evolve like slowly, and then people need to have the proof before moving on to the next steps, I guess. Yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Okay, let's move on to the third question. Okay, this is from Galaniko Adali, particularly or precisely to Pak Seno Pranata. Are you ready, Pak Seno? How MITJ maintain the public space or TOD which had been developed regarding to cleanliness, building maintenance, and waste management. Does MITJ has any specific program to maintain those aspects? In my observation, some of places such as the train station having waste and trash issue in several spots. Okay, Pak Seno, I'm putting you in the hot seat now. Sorry, I'm just reading the question.
I believe that is the fact. Some of the train stations not managed very well by the Pemprov DKI Jakarta, but actually we have a program what we call with a collaboration between PT KAI as the operator of the station and the train, and us as a TOD development agency and Pemprov DKI. So we try to manage all the things into integrated facility management with super apps actually. So we try a digital based collaboration with, if you know, Jakarta also have a application and called Jaki, and then they will link to Satpol PP and Dinas Kebersihan and also Dinas Perhubungan, and then so not only us but every people that using those train station can report by the application, and then those report will directly link to several agency. Yeah, but it's not done yet because we have to collaborate with some part of Jaki, aplikasi Jaki actually.
Okay.
But we try another scheme now using the digital base.
sorry. Yeah, the question is very hard to answer in reality. I can feel it, I can relate that. But again, I'm leaning toward optimistic value of evolving people. Hopefully, even when we try to when you open the first MRT station, it was chaos,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, very chaos.
Very
Yeah.
chaos. And then,
Very chaos.
but I remember one Indonesian anthropologist who study about the changing behavior on how people using the MRT and MRT system and MRT station, has noticed that eventually people will understand that there are certain disciplinary steps that they need to do, as well as how to use the urban area, how to use the urban facilities and everything. And now it's much better.
Much
Very,
better.
yeah, very modern, very clean, and then people follow the rules. But again, design plays important thing in that matter.
Yeah.
So I'm still leaning toward a very optimistic thought.
Yeah, me too. But it's not as easy as we think. Yeah, because culture change is not. Yeah, it's not as simple, and probably in the very short term they can change all the behavior.
Yes. So okay, I'll be continuing to the next question. We still have perhaps 10 minutes or less than 10 minutes. There are several questions. I will choose one from Mr. Herman Huta Suhut, Mercu Buana University. 60% of urban actors in Jakarta are informal workers, earning a minimum wage, while on the other hand, the TOD infrastructure actually makes the means of living expensive. For example, cheap housing, cheap food retail, and even taxes. How can this be sustainable and fair to all levels of society? Okay, again, I'm putting everybody in a hot seat now. I don't know whom to start. Mr. Wang, do you have any experience in Singapore in answering the fairness of the transit mobility?
Maybe okay, so as a start, I would say that this is not an easy answer. This is not an easy question to answer. I think that this is something that many cities are also grappling with. Ultimately, I think what is behind the question is about standard of living and about cost of living. And I think this is also a bit related to a subsequent follow-up question about the extent of the TODs and also like to what extent you want to reach it. Generally, there's a concern that with TODs, you are basically, what you mean is gentrifying the area. It means that people are starting to invest in the area, and because of capital markets, there's land appreciation, price appreciation. The cheap areas are basically priced out of it. Cheap rental is being priced out. Housing is becoming more unaffordable. That's really the thinking behind this question. I don't have a good answer, I will be honest. I think that there's a lot of structural issues associated with this that's got to do with the larger standard of living, the larger issue in terms of like education and really helping people to improve their own job prospects. But I'm reminded of two situations. I think the first is really transport costs. If you think about standard of living or cost of living, when we talk about housing, we talk about retail, we talk about taxes, we talk about food, but actually transport is also a big part of it as well. And if you are actually living in an area where the only mode of transport where you can get around is the car, the question is that a socially just sort of concept? What it means is that you are fundamentally, if you are, that means, for instance, so, and this was, it reminded me of a situation when I was studying in Australia. And we were looking at like where the poor people lived in Melbourne. That was where I was studying. And it seems that the people who were poor were living in suburbs where there was also no MRT connections. There was no rail connections. There were no bus connections. Bus connections were very poor. So let's say if you, as someone who was poor and unemployed, you needed to get to a job interview and they wanted to see you, how are you going to get there? So what happens is that you had to, before you even get the job, you had to go and buy a second-hand car. You had to fill up with petrol, and then you need to drive to go for your job interview. So the question is living in a place where you do not have access to public transport also a socially just, low cost of living sort of outcome? That is a thought that I have. And the reason I think that is going to be exacerbated is because if you look at fuel prices, they're going up because of climate change, carbon emissions, you're looking at all the geopolitical instability with Ukraine. They are essentially affecting the resource prices, and actually food prices increasing could also be attributed to supply chain disruptions and that sort of thing. So my sense is that there are a lot of all these factors that at work. I don't think that TODs alone are contributing to the attractiveness of people coming in, although I think that they are a factor in making the place definitely more attractive. But I do think that the solution probably lies somewhere that is a bit beyond just the TOD. It's probably structural. You need to think about it from a larger policy angle. And I leave with a question as well, which is that if you do not have access to public transport, is that something that also is fair for you as well? Yeah, if you are not able to get around to anything, and you only have the only way is either to walk, or to find some other means. Yeah. I don't know, Ray, do you want to chime in?
No, I think I echo that as well. That's a really good point, because I think there's a value beyond the cost aspect, the well-being part. If you have proper public transport connectivity or even a proper footpath or a cycling path, then your use of a bicycle compared to a fuel guzzling car makes a big difference, you see, just because that infrastructure is available. So we can see it from that perspective.
Any additional thought from Pak Seno?
I agree with Wang. So I don't have a very good answer actually, but in Jakarta, in practical practice, every time we apply as a developer of TOD area, we have to create the design guidelines, and on those urban design guidelines, we have to put an affordable, for example, some of the percentage for affordable housing, and then affordable or informal space, retail space. And as you know, Taman Duku Atas and also Terowongan Kendal, at my previous slide, we try to create a very inclusive public space, so everyone can use those kind of public space, not only for an urban mobility or infrastructure, but also they can use those public space for their existence actually.
Yeah. This is very normative question and a normative answer, that it is hard to pose an exact every side make everybody happy answer thing. It's really impossible. But the thing is, having a very reliable backbone mass transportation itself helps a lot, right? Even low income community, they can save their energy, they can save money, hopefully save their money from using a lot of transportation, mode transportation, consuming a lot of energy on switching from 1 to 2. So we cannot answer this question based on how much money that you spend only, but how much energy that they save in a daily basis, for example. So I still believe that TOD actually helps a lot, even for low-income community. But researching on the price, the rate, the fare of the MRT is pretty much our homework. How much is the fare rate for the MRT, for example? One of the reasons why I say this, because the phenomenon of Citayam, for example, it's pretty much answered that. It's a very coming from a very low income community out there outside of Jakarta, coming easily to Jakarta to really enjoy the city area with less money in transportation. But again, I cannot answer this because it's very much a normative answer. Hopefully it can be implemented and then applied in other area. So this is your homework, Pak Seno. But again, on behalf of the organizer and I myself, I thank you all very much for 3 speakers. And also I thank you all for the participants for joining this very interesting session. Before I'm giving the floor to the MC, I would like to remind you all that the saga of sustainability saga will continue for the second session. Hopefully there will be another announcement when it will be coming, and the third session as well. We really hope you can continue to join with us in the next session. I myself, Ade Tinamei, thank you all. See you later, and then the floor will be given back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for all the closing session. So maybe let's take a picture for everyone. So please turn on your camera, and then we will take picture one by one for each slide. Okay. I will wait a little bit. Yeah. Okay. I think all already turned on. So from 1, 2, 3.
Cheers.
Okay, next slide. 1, 2, 3. Third slide. 1, 2, 3. And I think this is the last slide, the fourth one. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all. Thank you for this insightful moment and then for this event. And thank you for all the participants and also the speakers from Ramboll, from PSUD, from MITJ, from Indonesian Architect Association as well. And this is not a goodbye, because we will meet again on the next second emission. Hopefully it will be on the next month. So stay tuned on our social media. See you soon. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Everyone. Seno, thank you, Mas Seno.
Thank you. See you again.
Pak Seno, terima kasih ya. Pak Senonya udah
Disa,
pergi.
thank you, Disa. Bye.
Dino, terima kasih.